Women often appear smart, confident, and sharp on the outside, but internally, they can be just as emotional, conflicted, and in certain situations, even vulnerable. But the real intrigue begins when these vulnerabilities are things they never openly admit to anyone, yet perceptive men notice them. And that is usually where the dynamic begins. That is where influence starts to take shape, where the interaction slowly becomes more complex. Sometimes boundaries begin to blur a little. And interestingly, she doesn't always stop it, because part of her begins to enjoy the emotional intensity of it. Now, pay attention. This isn't a simple conversation. This video is about 8 psychological vulnerabilities women rarely speak about openly. But their body language, their eyes, and their behavior often reveal them clearly. And when a man learns to recognize these patterns, the dynamic between him and a woman can shift dramatically, often without her even realizing it. And one more thing, watch this video all the way to the end, because the last 2 points are deeply psychological and highly powerful. They're the real game changers. So if you want to understand when attraction deepens, when even the smallest touch can create a strong reaction, and when emotional tension begins to shift the dynamic between you and a woman, then this video is for you. Let's begin. The first vulnerability is eye contact captivity. When the eyes silently invite action, it has already been proven that eye contact is a powerful psychological trigger capable of activating hidden desire inside someone. And women are often highly responsive to this dynamic. When you speak to a woman while holding deep, steady eye contact, slowly, confidently, and with subtle intent, her body language begins to shift. She may start playing with her hair. She might lightly bite her lip. She adjusts her posture again and again. These are nonverbal signals that something emotional is being activated within her. And if, during this moment, you introduce a little sexual tension, for example, by briefly glancing down at her lips for 2 seconds or leaning slightly closer during conversation, her breathing may change. She may shyly break eye contact for a moment, but then she looks back at you again. Psychologically, this tension pulls her out of the safe comfort zone where everything feels predictable. Instead, she becomes drawn toward the excitement of uncertainty, where there's a little risk, a little thrill, and the feeling that something meaningful might happen. Eye contact is a powerful tool. When used at the right time and with the right intensity, it can create a moment where a woman internally becomes open to deeper connection. The second vulnerability is the poison of privacy. When she feels you can become her secret, every woman desires a man who feels exclusively hers, someone who can witness her hidden desires, someone who can share moments with her without judgment. Psychology shows that when a person feels their privacy is respected and their secrets are safe, trust forms very quickly. And when a woman believes you won't expose her personal thoughts or conversations, she begins to feel comfortable crossing emotional boundaries with you. This is where intimacy often begins to grow, when she realizes that with you, she can explore feelings or conversations without fear of being judged or exposed. That sense of security makes the connection feel both safe and slightly forbidden, and that combination can be incredibly powerful. This is often when women begin spending more time alone with a man. They may invite him into more personal spaces of their life. Sometimes indirectly, she might say something like, "No one's home tonight," or "I'm honestly bored. I need better company." These are often subtle tests, and if you respond with calm confidence and playful energy, she may lean further into that private dynamic with you, where privacy allows deeper emotional and physical comfort to grow. The third vulnerability is the language of touch, when her body begins to express what her words do not. Women often don't verbalize everything they feel, but their body language can communicate quite clearly. And one of the strongest signals is touch. Psychology suggests that when a woman is attracted to a man, she naturally wants to remain physically close to him, sometimes subconsciously, sometimes intentionally. Her gestures begin to feel more intimate. She might adjust your sleeve, lightly tap your arm while laughing, or briefly touch your shoulder during conversation. These gestures can function as silent invitations of comfort. And the most telling moment is when she responds positively to your touch. If you place your hand lightly on her arm and she doesn't pull away, instead, she stays present in the moment, that often signals growing comfort. Touch becomes a subtle vulnerability many women don't consciously analyze. But when a touch feels both safe and exciting, she often wants to experience it again. And that's when the comfort zone expands, where interaction slowly begins moving beyond words. Many women even invite this progression through subtle gestures. Yet socially, they've learned to behave as if nothing is happening. But a perceptive man reads those signals quietly. And over time, the line between right and wrong begins to soften. The fourth vulnerability is the hunger for emotional validation. When someone truly sees her, she begins to open up. On the outside, many women appear completely independent, as if they don't need anyone. But internally, almost every person desires emotional validation. Someone who listens deeply, someone who notices them, someone who makes them feel uniquely valued. When a man gives thoughtful compliments, "You're different from most people I meet," or "There's something hidden behind your eyes," she begins to open emotionally. This psychological opening can create vulnerability, because as she shares more, her emotional boundaries slowly relax. Things she would never normally talk about start coming out naturally. Her secrets, her desires, even her fantasies. That's why women often trust men who show genuine attention and understanding, and slowly, within that trust, physical comfort begins to grow as well, holding hands, leaning her head on his shoulder, and she doesn't stop it, because that validation brings her emotional peace. Validation is a powerful psychological trigger. It can make someone emotionally and eventually physically more open. A man simply needs to understand the timing. The fifth vulnerability is the fire of fantasy, the thoughts she has but rarely speaks about. Every woman carries an inner world where she imagines letting go of control, even if she appears reserved or traditional on the outside. If a man can understand the emotional patterns behind those fantasies, she may feel strongly drawn toward him. Psychologically, women are often attracted to men who display leadership, men who guide interactions, who make confident decisions, who create emotional experiences she didn't expect. This is where the dynamic becomes interesting. Her vulnerability is that she cannot openly express these fantasies because she fears judgment. But sometimes she drops subtle hints in conversation. For example, when she says, "I don't trust guys easily," or "Some men are just too bold." Often she's testing whether you fit the dynamic she imagines. If you respond playfully and confidently, sometimes the bold ones create the most interesting stories. And she smiles while lowering her gaze. That often means you touched the emotional spark inside her. From there, she may slowly step into a more adventurous emotional space with you, where curiosity and attraction begin pushing past her usual boundaries. The sixth vulnerability is the forbidden fruit effect. The more something feels unavailable, the more desirable it becomes. Human psychology often craves what it cannot easily obtain. And this is particularly powerful in attraction dynamics, when a woman senses that you are not easily accessible, when you're not chasing her attention, when it feels like you have options and a full life. She begins to feel the urge to win your attention, and that desire can make her push the interaction further herself. Have you noticed something interesting? When you constantly text a woman, she often loses interest. But when you become busy, disappear for a while, or simply live your life, she starts observing you more closely. She checks your stories. She watches your activity, because suddenly you feel scarce, and scarcity increases desire. At that point, she often becomes the one trying to reconnect, increasing physical closeness, even steering conversations into playful or suggestive territory, just to test your reaction. If a man understands this psychological principle, she may begin breaking her own limits in pursuit of him. The seventh vulnerability is masculine calmness, when your stillness creates curiosity inside her. Women spend most of their day around men who desperately chase attention, constant messages, overreactions, trying too hard to impress. But when a man is calm, his eyes relaxed, his movements slow, his speech unhurried, it disrupts her expectations. Psychologically, calmness reflects masculine presence. It signals that you are not seeking validation, and paradoxically, that is deeply attractive, because when everyone else wants her attention, but you remain grounded and composed, her curiosity intensifies. Your calmness communicates quiet dominance, and she begins testing that presence, moving slightly closer, trying to break an awkward silence, searching your eyes for meaning. When she sees that your frame doesn't shift, her attraction often deepens even further. She wants your attention. She wants you to say something slightly suggestive or guide the emotional energy of the moment. Masculine calmness becomes a mirror where she starts seeing her own desires more clearly. And sometimes that restlessness pushes her to pursue the connection herself. As the saying goes, a calm man can create the strongest storm. The eighth vulnerability is proximity tension, where physical closeness alone creates powerful reactions. Every woman has certain highly sensitive areas of physical awareness, but the biggest mistake many men make is believing attraction only comes from direct touch. That's incorrect. The most seductive men create tension through presence alone, through eye contact, through body language, through controlled proximity. When a woman sits close to a man who feels grounded, confident, and aware of his physical space, there's often a moment where her breathing subtly changes. She adjusts her posture, moves her legs slightly. Her mind begins wondering, does he notice how I'm reacting? This reaction comes from proximity tension, when you slowly lean slightly closer, or your knees briefly brush during conversation. She immediately becomes aware of the moment. That instant awareness can trigger strong emotional stimulation. And if at that moment you speak in a calm, grounded voice, you know this moment feels interesting, right? Or sitting this close makes it hard to ignore the tension. Her body often relaxes, because now she's not just hearing your words. She's feeling the emotional energy behind them. This is a vulnerability women rarely speak about, but it can be read clearly through subtle gestures, shifting posture, and lingering eye contact. A stoic man notices these signals quietly, and without rushing, he gradually deepens the chemistry until the woman herself begins taking steps society usually expects men to take. So, gentlemen, by now you should understand something important. Women may appear calm and composed on the surface, but internally they carry many emotional triggers they rarely talk about. The man who understands these signals is the one who truly controls the dynamic. If this video opened your eyes, Subscribe to Stoic Men right now, because here we reveal the hidden psychology that helps you understand the deeper patterns of attraction. Comment below which point felt the most powerful or relatable to you, and share this video with a friend who still takes every word a woman says at face value. It's time he learns how attraction really works. This is Stoic Men, where boys learn to become men.